So, Eric, if someone doesn't call Dig and there is some sort of a mishap, what happens?
Well, really, it could be one of three things, and hopefully not all three. But the first would be service interruptions, the loss of a vital utility, whether it be heat or telecom to your home. The second one would be costly repairs that you will be charged by the utility providers for coming out and having to repair the damaged facility. But most importantly is the risk of injury or possibly worse.
Hey everyone, it's Adam Helfman from Hire It Done. Welcome to the podcast. Great guest today, Eric Urbain from missdig811.org. They're the company you must call before you dig. Eric, welcome to the podcast again.
Thanks, Adam. Good to see you.
You know, time's flying by.
Yeah.
We're in the heat of the construction season here in Metro Detroit. The tickets that are coming into Dig for requests for locations have got to be every day growing and growing and growing. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. It's that time of year, and it's spring, obviously. You know, we just came off a holiday, a lot of stuff going on. I mean, no one has, you look around everywhere. You try to drive anywhere, you can see there's stuff happening everywhere. And, you know, we're coming off a year in 2024 where we had an all-time record in terms of volume. We took over 1.3 million tickets, and just through, you know, the point we are here this year, we're kind of right at that same pace. So there is a lot going on.
It's incredible, that volume that you can handle. Let me ask you a question. And for the people who are first time tuning in here, tell everyone what Dig is and what you guys do.
Absolutely. So Dig is a free service, and we are established to be your single point of contact for any excavators prior to digging. So we can protect what's underground, right? So we work with all the public utility companies and municipalities. So if you have a digging project coming up, you contact us either online or by calling 811. Let us know what you're doing, where and when. We then work with all the utilities in that company so they can come out and mark the location of their underground line. So rather than, you know, any individual contractor or do-it-yourselfer calling the power company and the gas company and the water department, one single contact to us takes care of all of that.
Interesting information. So let's take a residential scenario. We have a house on a lot, and the homeowner who owns the house wants to build an addition off the back with a full basement. They want to and then put a deck on the side. And this house, let's just say, has been there 20 years.
Yep.
Typical setup of a house like that. You have gas line coming into the house. You've got phone lines, cable, electric, sometimes overhead.
Yep, sure.
Sometimes underground.
Right.
What else is underground that may impact the area?
So when you're talking about, you know, the gas, power, cable, and phone, those are the primary type of utilities that would be tied into the Dig system. Now, we also work with the municipal type of utilities, the water and sewer. But what a lot of people don't know and when working with that is our municipalities always mark and locate their mains and the right of way. But most people who've ever had a plumbing backup understand that the individual water services and sewer laterals to their home are typically considered private. They are theirs. The city does not take responsibility.
Interesting.
So when you contact us, we will absolutely send the cable company, phone company, power company, and gas company out to locate and mark their lines. Beyond that, I think a lot of people may not understand all the things that they own and operate that they don't give a second thought, right? You know, that your in-ground sprinklers, the invisible dog fence, the power you have going to the detached garage.
Yeah,
right?
any low voltage.
Right, all that low voltage. Now, those all exist and they're very valuable. Same thing with water wells, septic tanks, depending on the area. But those are all privately owned, so we don't know really anything about them. We certainly have resources and tools to help people identify where those are at. But primarily, like you mentioned, it's the telecommunications, power, and gas that will be located when you contact us.
So for a homeowner who's building an addition or getting brick pavers or getting a driveway, any sort of digging that's deeper than 12 inches?
Well, typically 12 inches, but what we have found over time and just through experience is especially when it comes to that cable and telephone type of stuff, if it's buried, it's usually going to be placed right under the sod, right? That first step on a spade shovel could really just wind up cutting your internet. It does easily. There's nothing. It's funny,
not to interrupt, but I had a cable wire coax from the pole laying on the ground. And I kept calling the cable company to bury it because they're supposed to bury it. It took them 2 years to bury it. Finally, I called up and said, listen, I'm canceling. You guys were supposed to bury this line. I'm going with the Starlink system. And the next day, someone was there burying it, and they took care of it. But for everyone out there, if you're thinking of hiring a contractor, you must know that it is their responsibility to call Miss Dig.
It's MISSDIG811.org.
So the official URL, missdig811.org, MISSDIG811.org.
Yes.
Perfect. And that allows the contractor to online put in the address, what type of work, and then typically Miss Dig responds in how soon?
So typically 3 days, right? So Miss Dig is kind of legislated. We've existed for a long time, but we're part of a larger, statute here in the state of Michigan that says anyone doing excavation shall contact us beforehand. And the response time is anywhere between 3 to 14 days in advance, right? So we want to hear from the excavator a minimum of 3 business days in advance, but they can contact us up to 14 days in advance. So really, I wouldn't expect anyone to see any locate marks prior to, 3 business days in advance. That's kind of the standard. But, if you've planned out your work, I'm not going to get to this for a week. Hey, let us know, we'll take it then. It doesn't always have to be right up to the limit there.
When I was a contractor, when I remember we used to call Miss Dig when we were picking up the permit.
Sure.
Because in our company, the permit was a benchmark of when that was the start of the timer on when construction started. So we would pick the permit up, and part of our checklist would be pick up permit, go to the job site, post the permit, and then call Miss Dig.
Sure.
And because, sometimes you apply for a permit, it's 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks or whatever. So we would say, well, call Miss Dig when we pick the permit up.
Great.
And then we would have a walkthrough with the homeowner about a week after the permit picked up. And then we would commence construction of the project.
Perfect.
And that, always worked in the timelines. I see guys, hey, we're digging footings tomorrow. Why aren't you here? And, it's all about organization and planning. So you call Miss Dig. Within 72 hours to a week, based on that, you guys come out. And then when your locators, they're called locators?
Yeah, the utility locators typically.
Locators. That's when they spray the ground with the different colors, or they put the flags with the different colors.
Yes.
And that allows you to know, like red is...
So red is electric, right? So the different colors. So they're not just indicating that there's something underground. They're also trying to identify what it is that you're working with, right? So when you see those red flags in paint, that's a power line. The gas is traditionally yellow. And then telecom is orange. So that could be either your phone or your cable. You'll see orange that way. So that way you know what you're working around.
So Eric, we're talking about the flags and the colors that denote different types of power, electric, gas, whatever. So let's go through these colors again. A green flag, what does that do?
So a green flag is drain and sewer facilities. So that could either be the storm drain facilities you see out there and, on the city streets, or sanitary sewer. Either one would be located with green.
Okay. And then there's blue.
Of course, would be, potable water. So your drinking water, typically, again, you're going to see water mains in the right of way located, not so much residential, but blue naturally is water.
Okay, so you got the green, the blue. Now let's talk about what's the red flag.
Red flag is electric or power facilities. And that is followed by orange is telecom. So that could be cable or telephone, but you'll see orange there. And then yellow are your natural gas facilities.
Are there any other colors that we haven't met? I've seen white. Is there white or no?
Yeah, there are a couple, but they're seldomly used. So white, what we call white lining, white is actually kind of been reserved for excavators themselves. If they want to outline where their work area actually is to let the locators know, hey, we're going to be in here. That's what excavators can use white flags. We have pink in our color code for like survey markers for, professional survey crews to identify different, kind of landmarks. And then there's actually purple, very seldom used, reclaimed water slurry lines, something people won't see a whole lot of out there. So traditionally, what most folks are going to see the most of are the red, orange, yellow, blue, with some green thrown in there.
Interesting. So for everyone out there, the purpose is for your own safety. If you're going to get a room addition in the back of your house, if they're going to dig footings for a deck for the posts, if there's a gas line, if there's an electric line or cable phone, any of those lines, if they drill down and cut it, then it pretty much ruins it for the neighbors and everyone in your area, and also your own safety. You hit a gas line, spark, whatever it is, kaboom. Many people have died from that,
Yeah.
And the reason why Misdig exists is because for the safety of the homeowners.
That's absolutely.
And the workers.
For sure. And it really is safety, right? And I think that gets overlooked a lot in the Misdig process, right? There are speed limits in place on the roads, right? For a reason. And it's largely safety based.
Sure.
But, we all have a level of risk tolerance per se,
Yes.
right? But why don't you or I or anyone else drive 100 miles an hour everywhere we go?
Yeah.
Because we don't want a ticket.
Yeah, and you've risked your life and
Right.
everyone else around you.
But most people don't always think that it's their own safety first.
No,
It's
they
like,
don't.
I'm not going to do this because I don't want to get in trouble. And they kind of put safety second, as opposed to, maybe penalties or repercussions. And we see that a lot in our industry. I don't have the time, or it's a nuisance, or, I don't want to do it because of A, B, and C. And nothing bad has ever happened in the past. And they don't prioritize their safety or the safety of those they work with or the crews around them.
Right. It's a non-issue until it becomes an issue.
Right.
That's basically what happens.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Homeowner hires a contractor. Homeowner hears this, sees this, and says to the contractor, hey, you going to call Miss Dig? Contractor's like, oh, we don't need to know this. There's nothing back here. And then he comes back, he post hole digger, and it's in the ground, and bam, something goes out. He didn't call Miss Dig. And now the homeowner calls an electric service company or whoever.
Yep.
They come out and they said, well, of course you hit it. There's no flags to do it. Is there a fine? Is there a ticket? Is there something that happens to the contractor?
Absolutely. So, I think that would be red flag number one for contractors, right?
Sure.
As a homeowner, you're hiring a contractor, and if their project involves digging in any way on your property, if they don't have a ticket number, if they don't mention Miss Dig, or you don't see any flags in your yard when they're starting work, that should be, an alarm bell should be going off. But yeah, there are absolutely penalties. So the first thing would be, again, most importantly, their safety.
Correct.
Right? If someone were to get hurt, or God forbid, worse, that's the number one. But beyond that, there's going to be the downtime when their project has been completely halted as the utility has to come in and repair.
Correct.
They're going to typically be on the hook for the repair costs. So shortly thereafter, they're going to get
they get a bill.
They'll get a nice handy bill from that utility for their costs to get out there. But additionally, the state of Michigan, specifically the Michigan Public Service Commission, if they catch word of that, they can certainly fine an excavator for being in noncompliance by not contacting us. So there's a varying levels of
Right.
of
Depends on the
repercussions.
severity of it.
Yep.
I mean, you blow out a water main or a gas line to a homeowner, especially in the winter, and everyone's down for, 8 hours, 24 hours, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's a big impact economically.
Absolutely.
Do you see contractors getting fined or getting in trouble a lot? Because it seems to me, you see it on the news, house exploded, that kind of thing. But in the contractor world, I mean, I guess in the circle that I'm in, it's an automatic. It's like you have to pull permits.
Yeah.
I don't see it a lot, but I must ask you, because you're the whole state, you're doing millions.
Yes.
Are you seeing it on average, or you guys are pretty good at making sure everyone knows?
The fines themselves don't happen often.
Sure.
The repair bills happen quite frequently, right? I mean, typically, I think to a point where many excavators, it's just something that they understand.
Sure.
Right. It's part of the business. Every now and then something may happen. There's going to be a cost associated with it. But on the fines, the enforcement is more complaint based, right? So like our enforcement agency here in Michigan, the Public Service Commission, they don't have troopers, going out and looking for incidents, right? Someone actually has to approach them and say, hey, listen, this problem happened, and then they will investigate and fine. With that said, though, just this year here recently, they're starting something where if any of our utilities in the state report a damage that happens to them up to the state, which they are required to do, any damage that they catch wind of that was caused simply by that person not contacting us first, that excavator is going to receive a strongly worded warning letter from the MPSC, kind of like, this is your first warning. If it happens again, they will be fined. And even on the do-it-yourself side for homeowners, they will receive a similar letter. So if you knock out your own cable or, your gas with a home project, you will probably hear from the state of Michigan sometime this summer about, let's not let that happen again.
So for misdig, everything's underground. What about when someone's cutting a tree down?
Sure.
In it, just pulling out a stump or whatever. Is it something you still have to call misdig for that stuff? Or
so if you're not disturbing the earth or I guess
grinding out a stump, maybe? Or?
So stump grinding, we do take a lot of tickets for.
Oh, good.
That is something that we get a lot of calls for because, those professional companies, that's big old piece of equipment that will actually get below grade, right? To remove whole stump out. And over time, it's amazing what you will find in those tree roots. You'll find your gas service is it's now right part of the tree. And, you may not know that at the time until they go and they grind that down to mulch and then, oops, there goes the gas line with it, right? So we do see a lot of tickets for that. Just tree cutting itself, really the primary concerns are those aerial wires, telecom and power. We don't really have a process for that, but if anyone needs information on, hey, who do I need to talk to to work about how I can work safely around these lines, contact us and we can look up some contacts there.
Interesting. That's good information. So moving on, the technology, we've talked about it when the gas lines are put in many, many decades ago, the plumbing lines, the sewer lines. Anything underground is not really relatively new. It's been more of it is older than newer.
Yeah.
So obviously there's got to be a leeway, it's really right here, but the flag is 1 foot over, you get that.
Sure.
I understand. Even when people put in mailboxes, along that's a big area that is risky.
I think mailboxes pose more of a risk than I think people may understand, especially if it's just something you're doing yourself. Because, hey, it's just this little hole in my yard, right? Well, yeah, that is all. But you're typically doing that on the public right of way, right? So rather than just bring your own home's individual service lines into play, you are now talking about main lines that are serving the entire community out in that public right of way when you get by the curb. So what might be just a small little post hole for your just single mailbox could put in the large fiber ring that the entire community or 911 system's on, the gas main for your neighborhood, the water main for your neighborhood. So it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you're doing it, big or small, contacting us can avoid, a very unfortunate circumstance.
If the contractor or even homeowner ends up cutting a line.
Yep.
Even though you marked it and they said, okay, it's right here. And they're trying to work cautiously, but still hit it.
Sure.
Do they call you? Do they call 911? Who do you call when there's an emergency?
That's a great question. What our quote unquote misdig law states is at that point, contact the utility company directly and immediately. Right. So if you wind up, cutting through your cable line, don't wait till the end of the day.
I'll call Comcast. I'll call Xfinity.
Right then and there is really what we want to have happen. Now, if you contact the gas line and you have escaping gas or the gas is ignited, you have a fire.
Evacuate.
You got to evacuate, obviously call the gas company and then call 911, right? So they can cordon off the area and take care of that. So those are the two things that should happen immediately. Calling misdig after something's been hit, we're not really going to be able to do much. But again, if you need a contact at a given utility, I don't even know who this provider is. I need to get a hold of someone. We can find that for you.
So at the end of the day, you can always call misdig. So let me ask you this. The items that have been under the ground 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades, whatever it is, and the infrastructure is getting old. They're, let's use Flint. They had lead pump plumbing. All that was underground.
Yep.
And it needed to be replaced. When they're putting in new lines, it's not always in the same location.
No.
So how do you coordinate on the updating of the data so that moving forward in the future, it's an updated plat or, survey, what's the process there?
That's a great question. And I think a lot of people out in the industry assume, and rightfully so, assume that we know where MISDIG itself, we know where the individual lines are. And that's not information we have. Each individual utility works off their own prints and records, whether that be in paper format or digital, online in GIS format. So really, we rely on them to have the proper information to perform their job correctly. What we know at MISDIG is for this general area, ABC Power Company wants notifications for these addresses. Sure. But in terms of where an individual line is, that's not information we have. So it's kind of up to each utility to keep their prints and records up to date when they have new installs and they're expanding their network. So they know, when they're out on site, what they need to be marking.
So like over time, I know like Google, they've digitized every book.
Yep.
Is there been a digitizing or digitization? Is that a new word? Digitization of the old lines and, putting everything digital so that it makes it easier. Is that in process? Is there like a core or somebody who coordinates that whole effort for everything? Because that's got to be a monumental undertaking.
Oh, I'm not a techie per se. I know just enough to be dangerous, but I'm the last thing. I'm no techie. So it seems like a Herculean effort. It's so far over my head what is involved with that. But yeah, over the past few years, a lot of our utilities are upgrading their records into, GIS platforms like Esri and the like. And at an industry level, even at the national level, conferences and events, mapping, digitization, updating records is the biggest kind of theme going on. And we are just kicking off a program internally to work with all of our members. So when I say members, that's the utility providers. And we have about 1,450 of them to help them, those who don't have digital records, to digitize their records. So eventually the MISDIG process itself, when you contact us, we won't just dispatch some folks to put paint on the ground. We will also have the ability to work through our member partners and provide you their records. So you have something that you will have in your hand to kind of cross-reference and verify the location of flags you see on the job site. They'll have the digital records provided by each utility. So it's going to be a long road to get there. Again, we have, 1,400 members and not all of them have digitized records. So, over the next few years, we're going to help push them that way. So it just becomes part of the process.
Who pays for all this?
The utilities themselves pay for all this. That's why it's free to call us. It's free for the excavating community. We are funded by the utility companies themselves.
And then the utility companies pass that cost down to the homeowner, to the provider or the service recipient?
There's probably something to that, right? In your bill.
There's like $1, the CPSC or whatever. There's all that. There's all these little fees, $1, $3, something. It's probably buried in one of those, right?
It's kind of the cost of doing business, right? So, but when you work with us, there is no cost because ultimately it's been mandated that the utilities fund our operation.
How many requests are you getting on a monthly basis?
This time of year, we could take as high as 120,000 calls in a month.
Wow. And when you say calls, now it used to be you had to actually dial the number on a phone, 811.
Sure.
But now you can still dial the number.
Yeah, absolutely.
From your cell phone, you can dial it.
Yep.
But you can also just go online and type in missdig811.org and completely do it digitally.
Absolutely. And in fact, a wide majority of folks do it that way, about 90%.
So that transition's been really widely adopted.
It really has. And really the only folks that are still calling us are kind of the do-it-yourselfers.
The old school.
Yep, the homeowners, because they're maybe hearing it for the first time.
What am I supposed to do?
So they're like, well, I don't know anything about this. All I know is this number, 811. Let me, call them.
Like a local building department. If I'm a homeowner, I want to build my own deck. I go in there with my plans. Mm-hmm. Does the building department say to the homeowner, by the way, you have to call MISDIG? Is there a connection there, or is it based? I'm just wondering if that's one of those things
They don't necessarily have an obligation to, but we work very closely with them. And, we've had staff for the past handful of years go out and meet in person directly with a lot of our municipalities to educate them more on the process. So I think more and more cities you're going to see when you go in there, you will see Misdig flyers or banners or maybe even like a stamp on some paperwork to try to promote the use of the system. Not everyone's going to have that, but we're seeing more and more of it.
Okay. So it's all a group effort as it evolves.
Oh, absolutely.
And get there.
Yeah,
That's interesting. What is some of the limiting factors that slows you guys down to really making it a seamless process?
Right now, it's volume. I think the biggest challenge that excavators face is just the timeliness of the locate, right? We talk about, hey, you contact us, you should expect to have marks on the ground within 3 business days. And everyone wants that and expects that to happen. But when we're churning out well over 100,000 tickets a month, could be as high as 1.5 million statewide. We're at a point where there are more requests being placed into us on certain days than there are people out there in the field to be able to tackle that type of work, right? So there may be a delay. No, none of our partners, none of the utilities want that to be the case. They all understand their role in it, but there are challenges sometimes in keeping up with the frequency, especially for large scale projects. Name your town. Let's just use Grand Rapids as a random example. If there is a large fiber install, which we are seeing all over the state of Michigan right now, they could be creating hundreds of tickets in a week just for them. And now just add all the other work from all the other contractors. It's
overwhelming.
And that city might just have 2 or 3 guys on staff. They can only do so much. So
there's where the bottleneck is.
Yeah. And it can really become
demand. Okay. Well, I understand that. And that's where it gets a little paralyzing.
Yes.
Okay. And it ebbs and flows. Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
And I understand that. So technology now. We've talked about, digitizing. We've got the fastest incoming technology right now is AI.
Yeah.
Before it was augmented reality, drones are going to fly over. Sure. We're going to do this and that. But right now, AI, like a blink. Do you believe, or first, let me step back. Is Misdig dealing with AI right now, or is it in the works with AI?
We don't have a lot of AI functions yet, but it's not to say that we couldn't implement them as soon as tomorrow, right? Most of the chat support you will find online for any service or business, that's AI. You're not talking to a person. That's not a person talking back to you on the other end. That's an AI bot you're talking to. We have the technology is there that we could operate a lot of our operation theoretically with AI. When you went online, it could have a back and forth, even via call. We're not ready to take that step yet because of the intricacies and the details that we need in that communication, that we're just not confident that AI will be able to solve that and not create issues. We would just prefer you have a conversation with someone on our end. And even if you're not talking to us, if you are just creating your tickets online, we have a quality control staff that is reviewing that and monitoring that. So AI, there will be a day sooner rather than later that a lot of 811, services do have a touch of AI built into it, but we're just not there yet.
But it's been discussed.
Sure, absolutely.
I think that, and I'm like nerdy tech guy.
Yeah.
So I love AI. I'm looking for ways to automate everything, cut out steps, and figure out how to be more efficient. I think based on the knowledge I have in our experience with Misdig, AI may be a huge impact to you. Now, I'm not saying replacing employees. I'm saying creating efficiencies.
Sure. Yep.
Being able to take the one small town that doesn't have great records and using interpolated and hypothesis and knowing that this one gas line runs this way and there's nothing after that, where does it go? AI can, with great efficiency or great high percentage rate, actually say it's going to go this way, and then it makes a right turn X amount of. I just think that that technology's there.
I absolutely think that some of especially our folks that are maybe a little technologically challenged, right? I mean, there are probably countless cities, their whole water system right now exists in an old leather-bound, dusty book in a basement, right? So as they look to kind of, get into the 21st century here, I actually think tools like that would be a great value.
Because, and I'll give you an example with AI right now that we could apply to Mystic. You've got the town that has the water lines on an old book. Mm-hmm. You digitize those pages. AI will scan it, look at the coordinates, convert it to an actual overlay on a map, place it on the map, and then come up with the most efficient way to validate or confirm that it's legit reality. And then come up with, here's the latest and greatest. Let's feed it to the big mainframe. And now when someone puts an address over there, boom, here you go. I mean, I'm simplifying it, but that's very possible.
What you are describing is exactly what we envision being just standard operating here, just within a handful of years.
Because the other thing I was thinking of, and this could be really cool, is when the excavator shows up, he just gets a notification that it's ready. He logs into his app, puts in his order, and then it pops up on the app exactly in color coded where everything is. And then he puts on glasses, and it's augmented reality. And in augmented reality, you see the ground, you're looking through glasses. It's real live, but just like a heads up display, there's the gas line, and it'll tell you beep, 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 beep,
Yep.
I think that's like a video game. And any young guy today will become an excavator, put these goggles on and say, oh yeah, I've done this. We should be doing that.
We absolutely should. The augmented reality part of it has existed for 10, 15 years.
But I think AI now takes the augmented reality to the level of like plug and play.
It truly would. Boom. It would revolutionize what we're doing. The only delay is just having all that data to feed up to it. Right. And that's where we're at. We're kind of at that first step of let's get all the records and maps from all the utility providers digitized. Mm-hmm. And once we do, now we feed it up to that AI, that augmented reality. So every cab operator and an excavator, you have the headsets. It can provide you exactly what you're looking at in real time.
And I think that's in our near future.
For sure.
I really, truly believe that. And I like that. And I think also with AI and Mystig is you can take all the past tickets, every order, and let's just go 3 years back. Yeah. Right. So that's 3+ million requests. You can take that into AI. AI can analyze it and come up with trends, patterns, and conclusions that say, hey, we've come up with 3 concrete ways to efficiently create a better process.
Yep.
To say, hey, this is the number one problem we have with Mystig tickets or excavators or whatever. And somebody can be working on those solutions, deploy that into AI and say, hey, if we do it this way, what is the outcome? And next thing you know, you have this parity where it becomes super efficient.
We get asked on an annual basis by our utility members for information like that as they look to kind of plan out what their resource needs are for the next year, right? Like, hey, how many tickets do you think you're going to have in this area? I don't know, right? But we have a wealth of data, whether that be call volume data on a geographic region, damages in certain areas, what's causing them. All that data exists. It's just a matter of combining it
and
analyzing it, and allowing, the AI and the algorithms to do the work for us.
When you have hailstorms or, an earthquake or something, all that impacts it. And it can say with high probability, hey, this year we feel like you're going to do X amount of tickets, and here's how you're going to do this many more if we can create a new streamlined approach.
Absolutely. Right. So we were talking about delays in locating, manpower issues.
Sure.
Right? Hey, having all that information available and being able to, do some data analysis and trend analysis based on, different counties, different utilities work type being done. It could really help those locators, as they go into each new year, each new digging season, identify, hey, these are the manpower needs we have in this county, depending on what we're seeing, and really, just kind of utilizing that data, like you said, will allow them to do that.
So let's go down granular for a second. So now the ticket's been made. Somebody is tasked with going out and putting the flags and spraying the ground and identifying.
Yep.
That person works for a utility company or works for a subcontractor of the utility company who does multiple utility companies and marks multiple brands, I'll call it.
Right. Yeah. We see both.
Okay.
Right? So, a lot of municipal locators are just, employees of the city that they work for. Some of our larger utilities, and it's about a split. Some have their own personnel come out and locate, where others will hire like a third party, like a contract locator that will locate for several companies. Right.
Did you ever see a guy like walking a beach with the metal detectors?
Oh, yeah.
So I've seen the guys with all kinds of cool wizardry equipment. Bzz, beep, 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 beep,
Oh, yeah.
So those types of wands and equipment, are you familiar with any of that? Is it something
Sure.
like, is it smell the gas? Is it pick up electrical EMFs? What does it pick up so it knows, moisture detectors, there must be water. I don't know. What does it do?
That's a great question. So yeah, those things aren't magic, and they're not metal detectors. They're typically radio electromagnetic signal chasers. So what will happen typically is, on one part of the line itself that we're looking to identify, they will actually physically connect a device to it that will send a tone through that conductible line.
Got it.
And that handheld device they have is looking for that tone, that signal, that electromagnetic signal that is being let off, right? So especially with your gas services, most of that's plastic. Yep. So it's not conductive. So the gas companies will bury a little copper wire.
I've seen that, yeah.
Right, along with it. And that's what they are locating. So, even on a small project, that's really easy to break. It won't affect your gas service at all. Right. But if you break that, the gas company loses the ability to locate that line for for future situations. So really it's pretty simple. They are physically connecting to a line and putting an electromagnetic tone on it, and that's what they're finding. So
they're walking along a line and they're, let's say, 5 feet over, and they don't hear anything. And then they slowly go this way. Then beep, 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 beep. And then the stronger the beep, then here it is. So then they know. And then there's probably a methodology of, well, I got to go another 5, 6, 7 feet to know that it's, consistent, not on an angle, and then they can flag it.
Yeah. Typically, if you were to see a utility locator, you'll see them walk the path of that line twice. They will connect to it, and they will get their kind of initial where they think,
and then they verify.
And they may even put like a little dot of paint on the ground to be like, all right, I'm going to come back and and they'll kind of walk what they think, and then they'll come back a second time to verify, that, even with that, the locate marks aren't always going to be pinpoint accurate.
Sure. You got to have a float.
Right. But, it'll give you a pretty good idea of what's under it.
It's kind of like in home improvement or contracting. It's measure twice, cut once.
Right. Yeah.
Double verify and get it done right.
Yeah. So, there are a number of factors, right? So anyone that's, ever been frustrated, I was working and I hit something, the locate was wrong. Why would that happen? What was wrong with that person that day? It's more of an art than a science, right? Like how deep the line is, what the line's made of, what's the soil
information
conditions.
In the beginning too. Good information in is good information out. Bad information in, meaning like, oh yeah, I put it right 3 feet down over here, but he was really 2.5 feet. He was really 6 feet. From the street to the house on a hill. There's all kinds of factors that will impact where a plumbing line, a gas line, an electrical line, anything buried would go. If the house is up on a hill, they don't go straight. Sometimes they'll go on a pitch. Am I right?
Absolutely. They're going to, it's the path of least resistance during the installation. And to just assume that, company A is always going to install a line at this exact depth that's going to be installed at 90-degree angle. It doesn't work like that, right? There's no concrete depth. There's no concrete way of getting there. Sometimes a line will run, perpendicular across your yard. However, they have to get that service to you. It's just important that people don't make assumptions and just take a little bit extra time, right? Don't take every mark as being dead over it. If you're going to be working anywhere near it, kind of just be very cautious and careful. Understand there's a tolerance zone there, and don't make assumptions that something's going to be straight off the curb or take a 90-degree angle. It doesn't work like that. If you ever have any questions, call us. Let us know, and we'll work with you.
And that's the other part. If you have a question, you're a contractor or a homeowner, it's very simple. You can call Miss Dig. Again, it's just dial 811 on your phone. On the website, you can actually inquire and contact, and there's a way to email.
Absolutely. Yep. And we have an education.
And no question is bad or good. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. We would love to hear. There's no such thing as a bad question for us, because the fact that you take the time to ask us anything means you're engaged. We're happy to help. We'd rather you do that than go out there and dig blind. Right. So we have an education team that creates a lot of training, wonderful resources. We have a liaison team now, which is new as of this year. We have 6 folks across the state on a geographic level that can come out to job sites with excavators, locators. If you have a problem or an issue, we have someone that can come out and meet you where you're at.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask, what if you have a job and let's use natural gas. They have gas to the site, but the locator can't locate the gas line, and it's just unlocatable. But the furnace is working. There's gas coming in. They know where it comes into the wall, but for whatever reason, from straight out of the wall, they can't find it. Has that ever happened?
It absolutely happens from time to time. And normally, ultimately that will typically be rectified. They'll review old prints. They'll find something to tone out.
It's like a clue.
Yeah. But it happens all the time. It's something, locators used to use in the industry terminology, abnormal operating condition, right? So locate technician 1 comes to the site and there's something happening there that is not allowing them to do it. Maybe they don't have records. They can't tone it out. Maybe there's a vicious dog that's not allowing them something that is just out of the ordinary.
Something prohibits the results.
Yeah. And they will typically then escalate that to some higher up within the organization that can kind of work and kind of remedy the situation. Doesn't mean that there wouldn't be a delay and frustration, but ultimately we're going to get that located.
So Eric, I'm assuming in your career, you've had some incidents where a contractor mistakenly or haphazardly hit something and it created such an outage or such an impact that many people are affected. Do you have anything like that?
Sure. No, and unfortunately that does happen. Of course, but funny you ask, because we had something happen here in Michigan relatively recently. So around 6 weeks ago, there was an incident in West Michigan, Allegan County, and there was a project being done on state land. So this is a project being done by the DNR. So I don't know all the details. I'm not part of the investigation crew. Right. It's still going on. But, what we do understand is that they hired, a small local contractor, brought out, an excavator. They did not contact us first.
So they didn't call Ms. Dig.
So they did not know what they were working around. And I think an assumption was made because we're kind of out in, DNR forest land that there's nothing to worry about. Well, there was. And there was a high pressure gas pipeline.
Wow.
That they wound up hitting. Now, thankfully, it didn't ignite. That individual, was not injured. But what it did is it knocked out gas service to the entire town of Fenville, Michigan. The entire town, all gas customers.
The whole town lost gas power. Was it cold weather?
It was the first part of April. So while maybe the days were fine, we're still talking 30s overnight. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, and because of the steps that the gas company has to take in order to safely restore, once the repair to the pipeline was made, they had to physically go into every single home, all 5,500 homes, and restart the pilots for the appliances. And that whole process took up to a week. So there are gas customers in this town, by no fault of their own, who went without natural gas, no stove, no dryer, no heat, no anything, for over a
Wow.
week in early spring, just because someone didn't take the very simple and free step of contacting us first.
Something similar happened around my house. There was at the end of my street, a homeowner had hired a contractor and they hit a gas line.
Yep.
Fire department, everyone came. I remember that. And on my street, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 houses.
Sure.
So it's a small private cul-de-sac. And they fixed it. Everything was fine. But 2 days later, DTE's at my house, or consumers, and they're working on my gas meter. And I'm like, I pull in, I'm like, hey guys, I paid my bill. And I was like, they're like, oh, we're replacing your meter.
Yep.
And I'm lying. They're like, there was a small leak. I go, how would you know? Well, we had an incident the other day. And because of that, we had to go to each house and just check.
Yep.
Because I guess when they pressurize it, they see more pressure's losing. I said, well, I haven't smelled any gas leak. And they're like, oh, it's micro.
Sure. Yep.
And I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Am I good to go? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, do I have to restart my appliances? And they're like, you're good.
Right.
But that reminded me that the impact of one event, the domino effect, can absolutely impact everyone. And that's expensive. That costs a lot of money. Do these homeowners get compensated, or do they get credit on their gas bill? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know that quite yet. Because again, I mean, the investigation is going to take a while.
We hope the excavator's insured.
We certainly hope so, because I mean, with that type of thing, if it's just a small family business, that may be the last day of business, right? For something like that. So while you may be physically safe, you may be financially ruined from something like that.
Yeah, we don't ever want that to happen to anyone. So Eric, homeowner hires a contractor to do some excavating. Yep. What's the most important thing they need to do?
I think the very first step would be to contact us at Misdig 811, right? We're a free service, and it is the first and easiest way to ensure a safe and successful project.
So Eric, if someone doesn't call Misdig and there is some sort of a mishap, what happens?
Well, really, it could be one of three things, and hopefully not all three. But the first would be service interruptions, right? The loss of a vital utility, whether it be heat or telecom to your home. The second one would be costly repairs that you will be charged by the utility providers for coming out and having to repair the damaged facility. But most importantly is the risk of injury, or possibly worse, when you contact a power line or a gas line. So those three all are inconvenient and certainly troubling, but certainly those are the three things that you should look out for.
Well, Eric, that was a lot of great information as usual. For every homeowner who is thinking about hiring a contractor, and for every contractor who's doing a project that includes digging, you got to call Misdig. What if the homeowner, as we wrap this up, just the last question, what if the homeowner is a little confused, or even a newer contractor doesn't have all the experience? What is your advice to them?
Absolutely. Do not suffer in silence, and don't be caught making assumptions or guessing. We're here to help. Reach out to us. We're easy to reach. You can call us at 811 or visit us misdig811.org, and we'll be happy to work with you and provide the answers you need.
So via phone, via online, easy to get a hold of Misdig. The answers are all there.
Yes.
Well, there you have it, folks. Eric Urbain from misdig811.org. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Adam. Great seeing you.
Once you